All right, I am calling the Village of Cross Plains Finance Advisory and Enhancement Committee of August 2nd, 2023 to order. Roll call.
Tim Hillenbrand,
Here.
Deb Cutler,
Here.
Jed Henry,
Here.
John Brandt,
Yep. Here.
Michael Polakowski,
Here.
and President Jay Langfeld.
Here. We're at public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the Finance Advisory and Enhancement Committee. Please observe the time limit of 3 minutes. While the Finance Advisory and Enhancement Committee encourages input from residents, it may not discuss or act on any issue that is not duly noticed on the agenda. Is there anybody there in the room?
Not other than Michael and Tim. No.
Right. And there's no one else on internet?
Nope.
All righty, we'll go to reports. Committee chairperson, the only thing I want to let you guys know is we discussed the mowing memo that we sent, and the outcome is they're going to go this month, actually later this month, they're going to send out our RFQ, try to get it back in September to see what bids would be, and then we'll compare it to the work that we did on getting the numbers, and then the board will decide if we're going to move mowing to in-house versus contract services. So that discussion will be happening at the September meeting. So good job, everybody. Committee members, is there anybody else that would like to report on something? All right, we'll go to finance director.
I do not think I have anything for the group tonight.
Do you want to share with them, our equalized value went up 3.58%. You said that was 85,000?
Yeah, so net new construction went up 3.58%. So we should be able to increase our levy by 85,000 just on that. And then equalized value went up 8%.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So great
All right.
numbers.
Yep, we'll go to general business. Number one, discussion and possible approval of July 5th, 2023 Finance Advisory and Enhancement Committee minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Opposed, same. So moved. All right, number two, discussion and possible action regarding the room tax. I went out and you have a copy of the state statute, Middleton's ordinance, and Verona's ordinance. Again, we're talking about this because hopefully at the next plan meeting, we will pass the ordinance on short-term rentals. So this should go right along with it.
I did a bunch of reading on this as well,
Okay.
and I really liked how Stephen Point has set up their stuff. Granted, they're much bigger than us. What they do, instead of just giving the tax revenue to one group, they've set up a 5-person committee, where one of which has to be the representative of hotels, and nonprofit groups can go to them to request funds for events that will bring in tourism, such as, Trout Day and
Right.
such.
Yeah, and that's exactly how both Verona and Middleton have it. They have commissions. The problem with us is I don't want to appoint a 5-person commission that absolutely has nothing to do right now. We don't have any revenue coming in. This is just to set up because we're setting up there. I don't want to go ask 5 to 7 people if they want to be on the tourism committee and then have no work at all.
Right, but we also don't have any revenue coming in, so I assumed we were just building the framework for when this starts happening.
Well,
So-
but if someone does, an Airbnb for one weekend and collects, let's say they charge $600 and they get 48 bucks. That's what it's gonna be. I think we can always change the ordinance if we ever get a decent amount of revenue, but I don't wanna, that's why I'm opposed to doing the commission route. Is that I don't know what I tell people, hey, we want you to be on this commission, but we don't have anything for you to do right now.
So-
Then I would recommend we give it to the Ice Age Trail over the Chamber of Commerce, since they are a nonprofit and they bring in tourism.
Okay, it's not a matter of giving, someone has to take responsibility of overseeing it. So we can certainly ask them if they want that responsibility. But anyways, I guess let's just discuss if we want to have the room tax ordinance. Does everybody agree that we should have it if we're doing a short-term rental ordinance?
So what does the short-term rental ordinance say?
Well, that basically governs how hotels, be Airbnbs, bread and breakfast work. And why you want it up ahead of time is a lot of communities, once they get them, you want to have some type of regulation involved so they don't become party houses or crazy. Madison ran into a lot of problems. So this is kind of, for us, we don't have any right now, but this is in case someone wants to do it, we have some control over it.
So, okay, I can understand that. Is there an enforcement mechanism behind it?
Oh, absolutely.
So how would that work?
Well, if, for example, I can't remember the rule, if part of it, I think there's a penalty up to $1,000. So let's say, I don't know what one of the rules are, but if it's a violation, obviously we would try to correct it without doing it. But eventually, if someone didn't follow it, for example, they were just using it as a house of prostitution, for example, let's just use that. We would have some mechanism to control it.
Okay, but let me use me as an example then.
Okay.
Let's just pretend I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to use it for a house of prostitution.
Okay.
And the people that I rent it out to are nice and quiet. Nobody even knows they're here.
Mm-hmm.
Then my question is, what's the enforcement mechanism to collect the room tax?
Oh, I see what you say. You have to get a permit. You have to get a license or whatever we called it in there.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we're aware of it. Yes, I see what you're saying. And then the ordinance here with the room tax then kicks in that, whatever percent you have to pay the village, 70% goes to tourism, 30% goes to administrative.
Okay.
I didn't understand your question.
No, and that's okay. I didn't ask it quite right the first time. I was just,
So the whole
Yeah,
thing
I was
is,
wondering that too, like if I wanted to turn my house into an Airbnb, do I have to like register with the actual Airbnb company and then did they notify the village that I have a home available for Airbnb rental or?
no, I think it's on your responsibility to notify the village and the Airbnb, which you're going to do anyways to get the marketing. And the reason you want to get this before it happens, so you can't get into a lawsuit saying you just came up with an ordinance to enforce it on us. So if all of a sudden a hotel wants to come here, we should have this in place before they get here, not put it in after they get here.
No, I'm in 100% in favor of this. Cause I think it's, like you said, it's better to do it and have it in place before something comes in.
so that then under the assumption that there's going to be money to be made from this. at some point in time in the future.
Yep.
Then there has to be a mechanism for distributing that 70%.
Correct.
So can you write a proposal that says, once we collect over $1,000, we have to address a commission?
That's not how, if you go to the state statute part, I can't remember, I'd be able to find it. It basically says you have to identify where the 70%, who's in charge of it. It can't be village automatically.
Okay, so it has to
And
go
the reason
somewhere.
they
Go
use,
ahead.
yeah, they use commission because the difference between a committee and a commission is the commission is generally more independent. Like it has responsibility that the village can't touch, like the police commission. They hire, fire, and promote officers. The village board has no say in that. It's all tied to that commission. The plan commission used to be a lot stronger, but they've changed state statute to weaken it. But the plan commission had certain things that it had to handle. So that's why they set up in the statute. That's why they have, one of the options is a commission, the others is a nonprofit, and there was a third one I can't remember.
Okay. Okay. So basically, if we do this, we have to say somebody's going to get the money.
Correct. Yeah, the money is going to flow somewhere. Yeah, in our ordinance, it has to say that to meet state statute.
And it has to go to a nonprofit.
A nonprofit, or you can do a commission. That's if you looked at the two ordinance that I gave you, Verona and Middleton, of course, they've got quite a bit of money coming in because they all have hotels. So they went with commissions, and if you look at the role in that ordinance of the commission, it tells, it lays out what it has to be spent on, basically.
So, for lack of a better way of saying it, if we had money coming in and we had a commission, that commission would almost be promoting tourism.
That's all. Yes, that's all it can be used for. You can't use it for 30%. You can use for general.
Administration.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So yeah, you can't tax people unless it's for tourism.
Correct.
So you have to at least abide by that split.
Correct.
And given the constraints that we have and the lack of the chamber makes sense to be the only place to do it. Bobby, how much are we giving them every year right
The
now?
chamber,
Yeah.
10,000.
I mean, I would say that maybe in the future, maybe we take out what we give them from that would be another option.
Yeah, you could do that. I talked to them. They would have to set up like a subcommittee of tourism.
Okay, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, we have to, and it would have to be very clean, it's got to be a separate thing. So they would have to set up a subcommittee on tourism, and, you could shift the tax money, the room tax money into that. And then you could subtract from the 10,000 that we give them. That to me would be the way to go.
They use, according to you at the last minute, they use the 10,000 we give them for things like administrative costs.
Well,
that money can't go to that.
No, that's not true at all. No, we give them $10,000, and the thing is, they just report back where they spend it. We don't have strings attached to it.
But if we gave them this money, there are strings attached to it.
Yeah, this one, absolutely.
They have to use it for tourism.
Yep.
Okay.
Just like we give money to Northwest Dane. We don't tell them where to spend it. We give money to the Firefighters Association. We don't tell them where to do it. We give them this lump sum money to go towards their budget, and then they do their budgeting.
I guess that the point that I made for doing it that way is, since we already give them a larger amount of money, the chamber, than what we would actually bring in taxable revenue from any kind of a hotel tax, that we can assume that they're going to do with it the right thing, and if not, we can always subtract it from what we're already giving them. It was the easiest mechanism that I saw. And again, I think we're getting kind of far ahead of ourselves. I mean, ultimately, we need to have this in place. So let's get it in place. And then once we start to collect some actual money, then we can address the next set of problems.
Right. The only thing is, when we do the ordinance, we should have something in there so it kind of fits state statute. So I'm with you on that. Ordinances can always be changed. And if all of a sudden we get a hotel here or something, that money flows in, then we change it and form a commission.
Is the chamber willing to do this? And what is their organization like? I know they've struggled for a while. Is it even something that they can take on and manage properly?
Yeah, I talked to them, and they said they would be willing to do it. I had sent their last the PowerPoint for their last annual meeting, but it didn't make it into the packet. But that kind of laid down what it had, the budget and everything in there.
I didn't realize you wanted that in the packet.
Yeah,
I thought you were just
figured
doing.
I figured you thought it was for another topic that we didn't put on.
She sent it to
I
me
sent it to Deb
directly.
because Deb had asked kind of how the money was spent, so I did
Right.
forward it to Deb, but
Right.
Yeah, and I read it, and you know, it's the same issue I've had with the chamber every time it comes up. To me, they like, it was about it during COVID. Sorry, I have no sense of time anymore. They spent a lot of time promoting businesses that were outside of the Cross Plains area, and to me, so I worry that even if this becomes a successful revenue stream, that the money will not be coming back in to promote Cross Plains.
Well, no, they have to. We're collecting it in Cross Plains. It has to go towards tourism in Cross Plains. Now, if
I'm
you're saying,
aware of that. I'm telling you, we've been giving them money for years, and if you look at what they're promoting, it is not always Cross Plains.
no, I know that, Deb, but what I'm trying to say to you, this money has more strings attached to it than what they get from the lump sum. That's all I'm trying to say.
Right.
You're comparing apples to oranges on this.
No, I disagree. I'm comparing past history to let's give them more responsibility. And how long has their current administration actually been, together? Have they changed leadership again?
Well, the paid director just changed, but the board has been pretty consistent. I mean, they have different board members. They do elections just like everybody else. And the thing is, if it fails, then again, we can change the ordinance. All right. I just don't, if it puts in there that we have a commission, then I have to go and find people to appoint to a commission that has no purpose right now. I do not want to do that. It's
But
hard.
you already can't find enough people for committees that do exist. Why would we find ones for one that doesn't?
Exactly. But if you say it in our ordinance that you have to have a tourism commission, then we have to do it. That's my big thing. I'm all for going to a commission if we had revenue. We don't have revenue right now. And I'm with the chambers. I can check with Ice Age Trail. I don't care. I don't think they'd be really willing to manage that because it's not really in their wheelhouse. Chambers, it's much more into their wheelhouse.
Yeah, I would like to look into other organizations that have been more stable over the years.
Well, then that's what I thought everybody was going to do. So that's why I went and collected the information on the chambers, because that was the one I did. I thought that's what people were gonna bring back today. But at least to make this keep going forward, I'm guessing everybody agrees that we should have a room tax ordinance, right? Is there anybody who doesn't think we should have a room tax ordinance?
I agree, we need it. I would vote to leave it with the chamber. I don't know if we need to take a vote on that or if it's worth having everybody go look at different organizations, but I don't think there's another organization that fits what we need to do.
Yeah.
When I was just looking through both ordinance examples you provided, Jay, I don't see where they specifically outlined where they were giving the money or anything.
Yeah. I thought I read them and they had commissions. No?
Yeah, the most of the commissions had very specific rules, and the
Right.
rules, so
Yeah,
like it wasn't to administrative costs. It wasn't to. You had to make sure that it was all
well, not all. It's 70-30 split if you read the state statute.
right. The
Right, but I mean, I
70
think as far as
went
the
to-
ordinance, it doesn't.
No, the
Ordinance
ordinance.
just references the statute.
No, but I thought in both these ordinances, when I read them, they had, I thought it was commission. I should have highlighted them. Huh. Maybe I didn't copy the part that had that.
Okay, can we move forward with the ordinance if we're all in agreement?
Yeah, all right, yeah, can I have a motion from somebody and I'll pull these out and then we can have the later discussion later. How's that? long as we
What
get-
is the motion for?
The motion is
to-
to have a room tax ordinance.
I motion that we should look into setting up a room tax ordinance with the funds going to an organization to be determined.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second, discussion.
My only concern was she said we would look into it as opposed to setting up one. Does that matter in the semantics of it?
No, because I think we're still gonna look at, I'm gonna pull some things. I'm gonna highlight what I had seen before when I read these. I must have not copied everything. I don't know why that's not in here. I'm almost positive. Both of them went set up commissions. But I'm fine with this right now. I just want to start moving it forward and then we can figure that out at the next meeting. So here's the assignment. We will determine what that is at the next meeting. How's that?
What is?
The nonprofit that we're going to look at in the future, whatever the wording was on that.
So basically where the revenue goes
Yes.
Yes.
and how it's utilized or just where it goes.
Well, state, again, I should have pulled out. State statute's pretty clear how it has to be used.
Okay.
You don't have a lot of flexibility on that.
Okay, well, if it's in state statute, then we don't really have to have an ordinance for that then, right?
Well, you have to have, no, I see what you're saying. Does it have to mention in the order? No.
Yeah, our
We
ordinance
should
doesn't have to say 3070. We can use that from state statute, so we just have to come up with where it goes. And then
Right.
they will figure out what to do with the 70,000 or 70%, sorry.
I like the
70,000 's great.
70,000 number, but
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
still not seeing in any of these statutes where it talks about how to spend the money or who it goes to, or the 70-30.
It doesn't sound.
No, which is great. I like that the ordinance doesn't say that.
No, the ordinance does not say that. here's what I'm gonna do, because I've read them, I know it's in the state statute, I highlighted it myself on mine, but I just, it's, I'm sure it's D sub 1 or something like that that talks about it. But I will do that at the next meeting. I'll just highlight the stuff that's important. How's that? And you guys think about where else you want to send it to. But right now, what we have is we should move, we've got a motion to move this forward.
Wait,
Any more discussion or are we ready to? vote
Yeah.
on?
Any more discussion?
I would just recommend looking at the Stevens Point website. They broke it down very well and had some good information.
Okay.
Can you forward that to the group?
Here, I'll just toss it in the chat.
All right. Any other discussion?
No.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 I
Opposed, same. All right, so moved. Okay. All right, number 3, discussion and possible action regarding the village purchasing policy. This was came after the discussion last month about using the state contract method for purchasing items. And the only thing in our current purchasing policy that relates to that is if you want to go with a sole search or sole source, you can use, if you use the state bid list, you can do that without sending it out. That's where the only part I found it mentioned it. And I think some people were saying, should we be having part of this policy where people go to the state bid list before they purchase items? Open
I
up
would
for,
support that and then have us, some way put a checks and balance to make sure that it's being done. I mean, we bought 2 vehicles this year. I'm not from the state bid that I'm aware of. I don't know about squad cars, but that's all in the same boat, state pricing, and we get it cheaper. We live in a state that allows that luxury. Just don't know why we spend more tax dollars when we have a possibility of a cheaper, same vehicle at a cheaper rate.
All right.
And you just can't go out and do it. It's got a department that should either have a checks and balance with the administrator or finance that here's what we got locally as our bid, here's what the state contract pricing is, and make the decision. But I'm not opposed to them buying what they're buying. I just think we have an option to buy it cheaper, then we should be buying it cheaper.
well, do you have some language that you're thinking about and where you would fit this in on this current policy and we can just update it? I don't want to start all over.
No, I don't. I just think maybe a paragraph that all department heads will submit pricing to the village administrator prior to ordering or prior to approval.
Well, we
If
got,
I-
I don't want them to look at every purchase. I think we got to have a dollar amount, and if I would have it where if it's not on state bid list, right? That's the concern, right?
Okay, I thought we did. I thought $10,000 or more.
Yeah, like
uh,
this is
may I make
Michael.
a recommendation? Sorry to interrupt.
No, let's just talk and discuss it before we come up with. Okay, I heard Michael. What were you saying, Michael?
Well, I was just gonna say that I'm uncertain that our purchasing policy is being followed, like with the purchases above budgeted item with the purchases above $10,000, it says that as part of the review policy, coach, the staff member requests oh wait, it's right here. Three quotes shall be obtained, and the staff member requesting the expenditure shall state his recommendation for which quote to accept. I don't believe on some of the things.
You
that
cut
we're
out,
buying.
Michael. I heard
The three quotes, it's on page 1 under budgeted items greater than $10,000. It says that the staff member should receive 3 quotes for the budgeted item. So if you're talking in terms of a truck, I'm just going to throw it out there. I think Jerry just goes to Kelchers and they tell him what the cost is and he buys it. He's not getting 3 quotes for that truck. It's already in the policy. The sole provider thing that you were talking about, Jay, is if there's only one person who manufactures that part in the nation, then they're allowed to buy from the sole person.
No, Michael.
The item or service is only available from a single source, is the first line. That's what that means. Sole source means there's one person who provides that part. That's what that means.
No, it doesn't, Michael. Sole
That
source.
does. I know how to read. The item or service is
I'm
only
reading, I know, but
source.
you're missing, if you just let me, the state statute allows, if you buy something on that state contract, you can do that without having to follow other policies.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's,
Know that you're getting the lowest
but I don't think
price.
that's what that means.
So that's what our policy should read then.
If you have a sole source vendor, when I work for the county, you had to show that that item isn't available somewhere else to make sure you.
Yeah,
Right,
That's what
but
that means. Sole
right, but
source
if
means-
you, but Tim, even in the county, if you took it off of the state bid sheet list, you could go do that without getting 3 bids or anything else.
but
Right,
that's
that-
because the state has
Dad, let
already
me-
done the work.
Yeah, right, but Dad, let me finish, I want to hear Tim, because I want to make sure that's how the county works too, right?
Right, you're right, but I mean, that's in the
Okay.
ordinance that it says 3 bids. You can
No, I
simply,
understand. I understand that, but what Michael's saying is sole source is for an item that's only made by one manufacturer. I'm saying that's incorrect. Squad cars, there used to be a number of different squad cars out there. The state had a state bid for each one, and that's what you could go. You didn't have to go out and get bids.
Okay, well, this isn't how this policy reads, Jay. It says that if the item is only available from a single
No,
source.
Yeah,
That's
That's
A.
what this policy says.
No, you're reading A.
I am
The
reading A.
policy is number 3. Number 3, that's the top. And then it has A all the way down to F. Those are
Right.
all options under sole source purchases. It's not just A alone. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You're reading just A, and that is correct. You can use sole source if there's only one person who provides it, but you can also do it if it's on the state bid, number F.
Okay,
I'm actually in agreement with both of you. And that might sound like it's kind of a hard thing to be, but I think I'm in agreement with both of you because I really think that is a very unclearly written ordinance. And I
Policy.
think
the policy.
I think we need to kind of say that in B, greater than 5,000, if we are not going to use the state bidding, the work that they have done, then it can you have to get 3 bids unless it's only one source of the service, material, product, whatever the hell it is. Then in number 3, sole source purchases, including using the state procurement process. But I agree with Jay, but I also agree with Michael that we need to clarify that.
Okay, but I think it's the definite, when in accounting, and John, when it says sole source purchase, that means you only went to one source to
Exactly.
purchase your item. And what this is saying, that is allowed to do
If,
under these circumstances, and it has A through F. So any one of
Yes.
those circumstances should allow you to go to that one company without checking anybody else.
Okay, so
Okay.
apply that to the truck.
Okay, that sounds good. So we'll apply it to
Yes.
the truck. We've never done that
No.
with any truck.
See, I don't know if, and I don't know if anybody knows this, if that was on state bid or not. I know he didn't get 3 bids, but did he look it up at the state bid list and that truck was there? And that's how he bought it? I don't know if any of us can answer that. You
All right, well,
don't,
let's ask him.
what's that?
Let's ask him.
Yeah,
Well, I guess that goes to where I'm coming with, there should be a checks and balance. So if he has to
Yeah.
submit, or whoever has to submit the 3 bids, or whatever they get for bids to the administrator or whoever here at the village, other than the person making the purchase, to show that they've done that. We're just holding the employees accountable.
For following the policy.
Yeah,
for
that's
following the
basically
policy.
what it is.
I tend to agree with that. If
Yeah,
I'm gonna buy,
I agree 100% as long as we don't do every item. I don't think we need to do it on $100 item or anything like that.
no.
If
No.
we're,
Over 10.
if
These
we're
are
sticking
If it's
budgeted items
budgeted
over
over 10.
$10,000, budgeted items over $10,000.
Yep.
But for 5.
So my only question then is, I agree that it should say, anything over $10,000, but are we adding extra administrative things for things that we know that we couldn't find on a state contract? Are there certain things that are only there?
you can look at, you should pull up the state contract list. Hundreds of pages. There's
Okay,
not too many things you can't find on it. And probably
Right.
the ones that you can't are the ones that are only made by one company.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
I don't think it's an administrative burden to say, I'm buying this pickup truck. Here it is on the state purchasing list. And this is what the price I'm getting. Or I'm buying, a flying fire truck that isn't on the purchasing list, and there's only one source of it. Maybe another question, do we really need a flying fire truck? But if we budgeted for it and the board said yes, and there's only one source, then you say, I only have one source. I tried to get 3 bids, I couldn't do it. I only have one source, and here's the price. That's not an administrative burden. That's just proving your work.
yeah, but it's an administrative burden. Let's say we have to buy 100 items throughout a calendar year that are over $10,000, and only 10 of them are on the state list, and the other 90 items we have to go check the state list. That's the administrative. That's what I'm asking about. I don't know. if
I
it's
would
been-
argue that it's the opposite. You will most likely find the 90 and maybe not 10.
Okay, then I would say that's where Tim's desire for the language change should go in the $10,000 item, and anything that's $10,000 or more has to be checked on the state list.
It says 5. Or are we
Well,
changing
there's
that?
10, there's a 10 and a 5.
Ah,
So
Well,
10
one is
are budgeted items,
Yeah, one's budgeted and one's non-budgeted.
non-budgeted.
But I think the language is in there because the first line of the sole source purchases says allowed for purchasing budgeted and non-budgeting items under the following circumstances. So a budgeted item can be bought under the sole source purchasing if it's on the state list. It's already in the policy is how it reads if you read that first line after for the sole source.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I think what lacks in this is that I think what I'm hearing from the group, people should be checking that before they go out and purchase.
Right,
That's-
and
That's where I'm hearing, I think I'm hearing where
Yeah.
people.
well, that's definitely my concern, because I know the board just recently got the capital plan, and on there I know that there's some truck that Jerry wants, and I'm just using this truck, and there's 2 police cars on there also, it can be applied to either of those, right? But the truck is like a $66,000 truck. Now, I don't have any idea how he came up with that number in the capital plan, if he looked at the state list, if he got 3 quotes, so that's what he knows what it's gonna be, or how that amount was figured, or if he looked at a price somewhere and added 20% to it, because with how Now, this is sort of where what we do with the capital and where this policy is sort of in conflict. Because, and I don't know if that's a different policy, because if the board approved something under the capital plan, then they don't have to bring it back to the board for approval, but yet this purchasing policy says that they do, if it's over a $10,000 purchase.
No. Can you bring that down? I think they just need board approval. And the board approved it at when we did the capital. So I think we're still within there. We got rid of.
I would think that if the board was going to approve something like that, they'd ask how the price was arrived at.
Exactly.
I would hope they would.
But see, and that's where it's kind of this cart and horse thing. Because, you know, if we're going to try to approve the police cars and the truck at next meeting for some amount, but no work has been done in figuring out what those costs are, we just blindly approve them, then, you know, are they going to go out and come back and prove that they used the state list and that they got 3 quotes?
Ask them before you vote on it.
Okay, here's the thing. That's how the process works. First of all, yes, I think you can ask the question, how'd you come up with that number? Now, they will say this is best guess estimate because of this. There could be a 3%. It doesn't matter. We're approving that item. And then in our budget thing, if it comes above that, they have to come back to the board, right? If it's above the amount that we budgeted and approved, they have to come back. The whole thing of how they got and when they buy the item, that is separate. That should be in this policy saying, hey, when you buy a truck or whatever item over 10,000, you need to follow this policy. And that's either getting 3 bids or following one of the circumstances where you can use sole source. That's how it plays in. So I don't see them as in conflict because the board has already approved at the budget time. What we're looking at is once it's been approved, are we getting the cheapest or the least expensive price for it?
I agree,
that's what
but
we're looking for.
And that I agree with Jay, but I do still think that the budgeted items, the way this policy is written, is that the board has to approve things that were already approved in the budget. That's what that first line says. The board will approve all purchases in excess of $10,000 for any line item greater that is part of the approved budget, subject to the availability of funds. It's a secondary check. That's why before capital items always used to come back. So we're making sure that they had the 3 quotes for the item. We're making sure it was on the state list. It was a checks and balances that the board had in place that was removed. And, if it's under the capital item, you can just buy it as long as it doesn't exceed it. Well, that means who knows if they're going out and getting their 3 quotes, they're telling us it's on the state list.
Or whatever crisis the village may be financially.
Right, that we say we don't want to buy that. We can't because our fire department got knocked down or something.
This is going way back to the 80s, but there was a time when they approved a squad car and then they said, you can't buy it until after we have all our taxes in after April. So don't buy anything until all the taxes are collected. This is kind of going on a limb with it, but it just shows that the boards previously made sure they had approval and before something was purchased and the bids were there.
Well, I will take responsibility for that because that was one of the first things I did when I changed the budget process. I always thought as a trustee and a member that it was ridiculous that we had to approve them twice. I've never heard of that. Like I say, I'm still not in favor. I don't have a problem making sure the process is correct, but if we approve a squad car and the chief should be free to go and do what he needs to do to purchase the squad car. I don't think he needs to make all these arrangements and then come back to the board. And if the village is in some financial situation, we send out a memo saying all spending is frozen until further notice or something like that. I just don't get
what do you mean? What do you mean the chief has to make all these arrangements? He has to follow the purchasing policy?
Oh yeah, he's got to follow. Yeah, he's got to follow the purchasing.
So then all he has to do is present his information to the village board, and they approve the purchase of the squad car. I'm in favor of the secondary. I am, I'll let you know.
Well, I mean, that's something I guess you can
It
bring
could
up.
be a
We're not gonna,
consent agenda,
thi-
and
this
Can I-
committee can't
can I
tell the
give an
board how to
example? It could even be on-
operate.
like, here's my bids.
Right, exactly, it could just go on the consent agenda.
Can I provide an example? Because I mean, this is private business, but this is what we did. And it's very similar, is that, you know, in the annual budgeting process, in the capital budgeting process, people put together proposals. You know, I want to do something to this building, I want to buy this truck, you know, whatever it was. And the board would vote in principle on those items. They would say yes. You know, as it stands right now, probably a year before you're actually going to do this, we agree, you know, to the purchase of that truck. But when it came time to actually purchase the truck, then the manager that was doing the purchasing had to provide the 3 bids, had to prove the price. If it was below the budgeted amount that was approved by the board, as long as they did their homework, you know, state purchasing list or 3 bids, whatever it is, if it was below that budgeted amount, they could go ahead and do the purchase. They had to prove it though, not to the board, just to their supervisor. And that was it.
Yeah, I have no, I agree that Bobby should be looking at all these capital items and all items to make sure they're purchased properly. You know, I have
It's
no
just
problem with
enforcing the
that.
policy we have, that's the problem.
Yes.
Yes.
I need
But
to,
like I say, I'm just opposed to bringing things constantly back to the board. But that's just me, but we can certainly
I
have
think
that.
if you keep bringing things back to the board, you're continually opening up the discussion and you're slowing down the process.
I would agree.
But at least the board gets to see the 3 purchases, or we get to see that they're using the state list. And most of the time it's been approved at the capital level once, it won't be disapproved again, unless the village is in some financial danger.
I
But
just
that's
think
my
it
whole
needs to be some checks and balances, and, you know, at budget time, you do your capital, it's a guess or best guess estimate for this vehicle. If somebody puts in $100,000 for that truck, and the board agrees to it, you have $100,000. It may only cost us 60, or who knows what it's gonna cost. We have to have some checks and balances in place that when spending taxpayers' dollars, that they're getting the best deal.
Yeah,
And I think there's nothing wrong with this policy except making sure somebody follows through.
right, I think it needs to come back, because with having staff approve the amount, since we aren't seeing what the bids amount, they just could have hyperinflated the cost of the vehicle, and then they're like, oh, I can just buy it for whatever, because I hyperinflated it.
Now we're
Well,
buying-
but they still have to go to the state list.
Yeah. Here's the
Well,
thing.
that's the thing, is how do you enforce that? I mean, how do you make them verify that they went to the state list?
If they want the item, then they should bring the information forward,
To the board and show them
like
that.
the policy says. They have
Okay.
3 bids.
Here's the thing. I'm sorry. I mean, the city of Madison has a policy very much like this. And it's very simple. The rule is you get things off of the state contract, right? You have to trust your employees that they're going to do the right thing. I mean, my goodness, and we don't want to micromanage our staff. I believe if we tell them we want things 3 bids or off the state contract, they clear it with Bobby or Brian, I am fine with that. I don't believe it needs to come back and we have to check to make sure our employees are doing this in this particular area.
May I suggest a middle ground? Instead of it going back to the board, I assume when they bring it to Bobby, or, I'm sorry, I forgot the other name momentarily. Is
Brian?
it something in writing? Cause you know, many of us, when we ask our superiors to pay for something, there's a document, there's a form. You show that you looked here, here, and here, so that there is a paper trail. asking for a paper trail, whether it goes to the board or just to Bobby, is not unreasonable. It also shows in the future how you came about making that decision.
And the auditors would love that.
Yeah, I could create just a simple form for like every equipment
Yeah.
or vehicle purchase, just said, hey, this is, did you use a state bid or what were your 3 bids? Who
Yeah,
did you
and
contact?
then
What was the
just
amount?
attach them.
They should
I
submit.
mean, we all do online shopping and look at more than one place. This is not asking a lot of anyone.
I don't think anybody is disagreeing with you, Deb. It's a matter of making sure our policy states that and we all understand it. And right now, the big debate is, does capital items over 10,000 come back to the board once it's been approved? That's, to me, I think we're all in agreement that we need to make sure we're paying the minimum amount because it's taxpayers' money. There's avenues to do it. It's laid out here. Get 3 bids, take it off the state contract. If it's the only company, then you make that. But the checks and balance should be within the employees, not the board. That's my feeling. And I think
Right,
yours
but
is
no one
exactly the
has
same.
said anything about how to make the checks and balances other than take my word for it. And yes, trusting your employees is one thing, but it's always nice to have paperwork.
No, I agree
I
with
like
you.
paperwork.
It should go to Brian or Bobby. I'm fine with that. Does someone want to write up some language for that? Bobby, you want to try that since you're going to be working it?
Do you want language in the policy that says that?
Yeah, we got to have some. I think it needs to be stronger in here. I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
Bobby, I have a quick question. Do you have an estimate of how many purchases we make a year over $10,000?
I'm assuming this isn't like when we have the road construction project, we're not, it's just be like basically
Right,
things in the
because-
capital budget. Like, I don't think there's a whole lot of things that are operating budget that are over 10,000.
Yeah, but like with the road construction project, that already went out for bid.
Right,
It was
yep.
already, the bid was already awarded, so that doesn't have to come
Right.
back to the board for approval because they're approving
Yeah,
the bid
so it's-
already on that massive project, they're.
Bids are there.
Yeah, and they're
Yeah.
submitting against the
The-
road.
So less than 10 usually, I would say. Not a
Less
whole
than
lot.
10 items?
Yeah,
I mean, then maybe
it's not
that's
a huge process.
well, is that as a check, and it could be after the fact, but couldn't any item that goes over $10,000 come to the finance committee either before or after? As a
We
review
could,
thing?
yeah.
I mean, it could be one of those things that, hey, the board last night approved this item, or this item got purchased for $20,000. It's just an awareness thing. It's an item on our finance committee. And if
Yeah, I could
people
just put it
look
under
into
my
it, then they can
report,
look
like this
into
is
it.
something that was purchased last month and these were the bids and this, yep, we could do that.
Because then that gives everybody the awareness of, hey, look, are we doing the right things? Are we finding that? Did they check the state bid? Or if somebody wants to ask Jerry or whoever it is, then they know that that was purchased and they can follow up with any questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those items, with them being so large, I understand trusting staff, but it has to come out and be recognized either at a village board meeting, at a finance committee meeting, that this process was actually followed, especially on these larger items, just so that everything's above board. Because we don't do 10,000 of them, we only do 10 of them a year.
All right, why don't we do that then? Bobby, why don't you write it that once that comes in, we'll be the caretakers of the process then.
Sounds good.
I mean, look, I'm fine if it's after the fact and we're just, so we're not slowing down the process and we're checking it. But if people want to do it ahead of time, that's fine too. I understand trusting the staff to do the right thing. It's somebody has to monitor though to make sure it does happen.
All we're doing here is enforcing the policy we already have.
Yeah, then let's do it after because then we know if they followed it. We have something to look at if they followed or not.
Well,
Oh, that's a
Right.
little
We have
vague.
the authority to approve.
Wait, say that again, Jay?
We will look to make sure we will get it so we can make sure the policy was followed, but it has to be after the fact to make sure that happens. We don't have the authority to approve, where they have to come to our committee to approve the expenditure. We can
The
check. to make
policies
sure-
in place. Why would you have somebody buy a $70,000 piece of equipment, come back to find out we could have bought it for 50, and then we say, oh, now what do we do? Because they didn't
Well,
follow the policy?
I'm guessing,
In place.
it's hard for me to believe someone would say if the policy said you needed to take the 50,000, that one of our employees would do the 70,000 one. If that is the case, then we will go probably the correction behavior of a policy violation.
Sounds like an
But we
HR
still
issue,
spent
not a finance
$20,000
issue,
more than we
Don.
shouldn't.
But Tim, come on. We first of all, this committee doesn't, that state statute's pretty clear that the village board is in charge of the budget. So we can't get in there.
Right, and we somehow came up tonight with this committee looking at it, where I get that it's afterwards, but if we follow village policy that's been in place and is in place, that should be been done ahead of time. And what we're saying is Bobby will do language
Right.
that if we're buying a $15,000 lawnmower, that there'll be 3 bids submitted to her, who they're from, and she'll make sure that job was done, correct?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then we're kind of doing the checks and balances on Bobby to make sure she's doing the checks and
Right.
balances with the rest of staff. Exactly.
mixed it.
We're the citizen overview
Yeah,
committee. I have no problem with that.
I'm not sure. I still like the policy of the capital items being 10 of them coming back to the village board as stated in the policy. Bobby can write her form up. She gets the whole thing. She evaluates it. She said that could just be placed on the consent agenda that comes to the village board. The village board can then look at that. It's to pull it out the consent agenda or go, they say this is the one we're going to buy. And if it's on the consent agenda, it just goes through. It doesn't have to even be its own item, but the board gets to actually see it, that it was followed, and how the purchasing was done on these large capital items. I do.
But
I like it coming back. I like seeing things like that.
Okay, well, you can bring that up to the board, but our budget memo, that's not how it says it works. So
Well, that's what I was wondering. Is it in a budget memo, or where was that established? Or
I'm
how
pretty
was
sure
that-
the budget policy, we would have to look that up, but I thought the budget policy said that once it's approved unless it's over the budgeted amount or something. There's like 3 things that they have to bring it back.
Right. Okay. If that's
so
is that out
what
there?
Michael, this policy and the budget policy give differing direction? Is that what
It
I'm
sounds-
hearing?
I didn't read it the same way.
They are in conflict.
Yeah, I think so. So we have to kind of figure out if it is. I didn't reread it, but I thought that's how, somehow there's a policy that I thought we changed where staff did not have to come back a second time to the board.
Or we just created a policy and that's what it said, and we didn't know that this one already defined how it was done.
That could be too. I can't remember
Yeah, because the
the,
purchasing one was done way before these other ones were.
Exactly.
right, yeah. I just know that was one of the things that we changed on. We'd have to look at them, but
Yeah,
that's separate. That's separate. It doesn't change how it comes back and stuff.
That's right here.
Yeah,
Is it in the
Capital
budget?
planning policy.
Oh,
yeah. There you
Yep.
go.
uh,
There you go. Yeah, that's exactly it.
So yep, they're in conflict. Although it depends on how you,
Well, I don't, like I say,
oh,
Right now, let's
this is
get-
up for review.
yeah, let's just get this one done right now. And I think we're pretty much in agreement. And then the board can work on the budget one and then modify this one, you know. To me, the budget policy was last done, so that one to me would take precedence, but that's just my thought on it, but we can clean this up. I think we have agreement on this. If Bobby can write some new language to just tighten things up and have that checks and balances, and then even have us part of the checks and balances, I think that's great. Let's just do that, and then we can work on the other one in a different avenue. All right, did we have a motion already? I don't even remember.
There's not a motion. No,
Okay.
I don't know that we need one, but
Yeah, I don't think so either. Let's just do those changes and then bring it back.
okay.
In the meantime, we reinforce the current policy.
Well, it depends on what the current policy is.
The one
Well,
that's in place.
This
Well,
one here,
We have two that,
Michael, he's talking about making sure the 3 bids and stuff like that. That's in this
Yeah,
one.
I'll resend this out to department heads, just saying, hey, as a reminder, we do have this policy in place. Make sure you're following it. We're gonna,
implement a form and
yep,
whatnot.
back down on you.
All right, we're good on this one then?
Yeah.
All right, number 4, discussion regarding banking request for proposal. So at the last board meeting, Ellers, who's our financial group, was willing to do kind of a RFP for banking services and stuff. But the price tag was pretty high at, the least involved one was $5,000. The more involved one was $9,000. And a lot of what they were looking to do, I thought this group could probably do it. And what it is to make sure that we keep checks on, are we getting the most for our bucks with the banking system, and where we keep the money, the checking account, investments, that type of thing. So I thought that's maybe what we would do, is kind of put together a questionnaire, send it out to a number of financial institutions, and have them come back, and then we would kind of have a discussion and make the board aware of the options that are out there. Because right now, I think 95% of our funds, if I remember right, are in Lake Ridge Bank. So that was kind of the background. I'm just wondering if anybody has an interest in taking lead on this. Don't all fight for it at one time.
Oh, boy.
Well, I don't have a problem. I can kind of start it up and then get a draft going, and then we can just kind of go from there. I think Bobby and I can kind of sit down and look at it. And I don't know, Bobby, you don't see this as a pressing issue, do you? Can we wait till after
Not during budget time.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Not in
I'd
August
rather not
anyway.
take it on during the budget.
I think Bobby would be good, because I don't know what, all the services you receive from the different banks, or the credit cards, or the.
Well, it's
Looking at, or.
Yeah, it's looking at, what's the interest rate? How much do they charge for this fee, that fee? What is, a lot of our money's pretty liquid. It comes in and out, but we do have, fund balances that are due, what are the banking system? We want to be safe. Just to do our check to make sure, like everything else, that, hey, we're not paying more money and not getting money in, because we all have it at one. And maybe it's smarter to move it around a little bit. I don't know. Those are the things that we're kind of looking at.
My question is, what services are we using? I mean, I'm sure we have a checking account. I'm sure we do
short-term savings, money market, and CDs, I believe. Bobby, is that pretty much wrap it up?
We do have one CD that's outside of Lake Ridge Bank. With Lake Ridge, we have an insured cash sweep account different money market accounts for all the different, you know, sewer account or funds. As far as
Are
the
you-
checking account, you know, we use positive pay.
Okay, I was gonna ask
Yes.
about that. Are you doing wire transfers or anything like that?
We very rarely send wire transfers. We do receive them.
Okay. Um,
We do a lot of ACH stuff.
yeah, I would have kind of guessed that. I mean, I know it's budget time, but I would help with that.
And John, a lot of this was kind of motivated because we kind of have some funds that we aren't going to spend right away, right? Like, and it was whether or not they were earning the
Right,
best
should we keep them
interest.
in a money market or
Right.
look at different investments outside of the bank?
Like if we said, you know, we have $2 million of that's part of the sewer, you know, fund or whatever that has to kind of remain semi-liquid, but it has to be there. Is having that sit in a money market at Lake Ridge Bank the best, or should we make it a competitive thing and go out to Can Park Bank give us a better price? Can Incredible Bank give us a better interest rate on these things? And what are those options? That was kind of really sort of what.
Yeah, that's. I mean, historically, that's not how banks would do it. Is they would probably be more interested in bidding a whole package, and that's
Oh.
where you're going to get your best rates. I mean, if
Okay.
you start going to say Lake Ridge and saying, I'm going to give you my checking account, but I don't really like your interest rate, so I'm going to go over to Monona Bank. No, they don't exist anymore. US Bank, and you're going to get my you know, CDs, and then somebody else. What you're going to get is basically the worst price on everything.
Okay.
No, that's, you're absolutely right, but that's would be part of the questionnaire system.
Yeah, which
Right.
is, I mean, you know, that's, like I said, I'd be happy to work on that.
All right, well, that's good, John, thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Have you done anything along those lines before, John?
Yes, twice.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
All right, so, but let's, I think, Bobby and I are gonna be kind of tied up with budget for a while, so let's kind of push that to like November.
That works.
Okay. All right, anything else on this? All right, any future agenda items? All right, do I have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, do I have a second?
Second,
All right, I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
All opposed, same. All right, thank you very much. Good meeting. Have a good